teachers and therapists to keep him with his classmates all day long. Because if they're constantly pulling Samuel out of the classroom, it tells him that he does not belong with his friends. It takes a lot of creativity to make this work. It takes an aide who knows when to support Samuel in the classroom and when to simply let him be with the other kids.
Ooh, all right, you got one. Hey, here you go.
It takes therapists who are committed to integrating therapy into the classroom rhythm. It takes phys ed teachers who create activities that enable all students to participate and work together. And it takes a teacher like Mrs. O'Brien, who is constantly thinking about how each student can be involved in every part of the day.
Oh, you ready, Samuel? Come on up, buddy.
Samuel, do you want to be our buddy for reading?
The challenges of inclusion have forced me to be a better teacher.
He does. Yeah.
Cat is big, that's right. This cat is...
I think you need specialists who work with you in your classroom.
Last week when we did a spelling bee, he loved it.
Samuel's team of teachers and specialists meet weekly to check in on his progress, figure out how to overcome obstacles, and make sure they are working toward the goals of his IEP. That stands for an individualized education plan.
Sharon has done a lot for adapting equipment for Samuel and other children to be able to participate directly with all of the different stations.
Good.
You're blowing my window off!
When I look at my classroom, I see a smaller version of life. And I think if children learn to accept within the classroom differences and challenges, they're going to accept them in life.
Samuel has the most obvious disability in Mrs. O'Brien's classroom, but he is not the only child being included. Several other children in her class also have diagnosed disabilities and IEPs.
Inclusion is easier in our grade level. I think when you get up to the higher grade levels, it's much more difficult.
I tell him some great jokes. I tell him, what do you call a pig that knows how to play karate? Pork chop.
Samuel wants to be as independent as possible so he can keep up with his classmates.
Wednesday.
And technology is our friend. Samuel has communication devices so he can add to the classroom discussion. He has a laptop and a joystick that allow him to write and create artwork. And he has a power assist chair we call the Zoom chair.
I get really angry when I hear people use the phrase wheelchair bound, or I read it in a newspaper article. It implies that somebody is trapped in a wheelchair. For Samuel, the wheelchair is complete freedom. He can act on a whim and take off and go wherever he wants to go.
If you press the green button right here, he gets a little boost of speed if he rolls his wheels. Always go 99 miles per hour.
He loves to learn. He loves to laugh. He enjoys his friends. He enjoys the staff members. His willingness to try anything we're throwing at him at all times is amazing to me. He is the most patient child I've ever worked with. He makes the other children take a step back and slow down a little bit.
Oh, big. Oh, I don't trust.
Is it big or?
The one thing my family always told me was never let anybody tell you about you. Don't ever let nobody try to limit you or put constraints on you. I took that literally. Well, I mean, being black and disabled it's unique in the fact that people say, well, what happened to you? You start thinking, like, you talking about today? I was like, no, how did you get like that? Like, when did you get shot? What do you mean, when did I get shot? Black man wheelchair had to be an act of violence. Black man wheelchair had to be a gangbanger. I fall into a category where 75% of us don't graduate high school ready to go on to higher education. But 85% of us don't go on to sufficient gainful employment. But the majority of us who have some sort of, whether it's a cognitive disability or physical disability, end up in the penal system or addicted to alcohol. The bar is so low for us that there is no bar. And anything we do above and beyond what nothing is an accomplishment.
Around the time Samuel started elementary school, I wondered, what does a school that is a model for inclusion look like? I met Marlene Oriana, a mother who was on the same search for her child.
He was a little different than the children in his preschool room. He was withdrawn, very repetitive in all of his movements, very, very minimal speech. The director of the program said, you really need to think about a neurological exam, a developmental exam, and I brought it to his pediatrician's attention, and that's where the ball started rolling. I didn't know anything about autism, and neither did my husband. I mean, it was like going on a roller coaster that never ended. First, I think it's almost like you mourn. My husband and I remember we cried, and it was very hard for us, but we did a lot of praying and just asking for divine help.
The school district told Marlene that she should put Nathaniel in a separate kindergarten classroom for children with disabilities.
It wasn't where the other classrooms were. It was like in a corner of a school. They had their own little yard. There were children who were severely needy, that were biting, that were screaming. So I was looking at Nathaniel coming home with behaviors that he didn't have at home.
Nathaniel and his family visited the Haggerty School, a public elementary school in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
As soon as I walked in through the door with my husband, we said, this is it. It feels like home.
Haggerty's principal, Joe Petner, has been committed to full inclusion for decades. When Dr. Petner was hired in 1989, the district's special education director asked him if he would try an experiment, a fully integrated kindergarten. Petner said he would do so, but on one condition.
I would like to have an integrated first grade, an integrated second grade, an integrated third grade, integrated fourth grade, integrated fifth grade, integrated sixth grade. It had equally an academic benefit. We were not dumbing down the curriculum by any means. I said, well, let's look at the test scores. And we could see that kids were achieving in high numbers. And in fact, I think everyone was helped by this because our teachers became better teachers. Schools have to invest in an intensive level of professional development. You cannot ask your teachers to do something for which they're not prepared.
He has grown so much social. The social piece has just, it's like a volcano coming in or going out. Sixth graders calling his name, bye Nathaniel, hi Nathaniel. And in the beginning it was weird for me because, I kept saying, who are these people? And I would say, Nathaniel, who is that? And he'd say, that's my friend.
We really accept people for who they are and what they are. Whether it's one's racial background, racial ethnic background, one's socioeconomic background, one's family constellation, one's abilities. Seeing diversity in its fullest sense as an important quality. Inclusion is an easy thing to do poorly. And when we do it poorly, we reinforce the beliefs that this cannot work.
I think that our goal is for him to be able to shine no matter where he goes, to show his strengths and even his weaknesses. I think that a lot of us walk in life being afraid to show our weaknesses because we're going to be judged. I don't want him to be like that.
We're having about 2 more minutes left.
I can't limit him. I can't do that. Everybody else in life is going to limit him. I can't do it.
And trying hard not to bump into each other. Is there any place within the society where inclusion already exists? Full blown. And the answer is yes. It exists within a lot of families.
Come on, drive to left center. Way back. Come on.
I think Samuel's disability has made our relationship and our family stronger. Betsy and I have had to work through some pretty major crises, and so the little problems just don't seem so serious anymore. Samuel and Isaiah are incredibly close, and I think in part it is because of Samuel's disability. I know Isaiah wishes Samuel could run outside and play basketball with him, but they find lots of ways to play together. And I think that allows them to express their love for each other even more openly.
If he didn't have cerebral palsy, he'd be able to bug me, he'd be able to annoy me. Not that he doesn't now. But just he'd be able to annoy me more. When I see him, like, right the minute we make eye contact, he, like, comes zooming up to me and he crashes into me, and unless I give him a hug, he'll just keep doing it until I come closer. It really makes me feel good. Like, 'cause I know that he loves me a lot. A lot.
Since Samuel was very young, I just couldn't bear to see him left out of anything, since he so desperately wants to be in the middle of the action. I've been obsessed with including him in everything his peers are doing. And there have been times at parties or family gatherings where I saw other parents sitting back and talking and laughing and having a beer, and I'm spending the entire time supporting Samuel so he can keep up with his friends or cousins.
Having a child with a disability is enormously hard on a couple. Financially, it's tough because we have a lot of expenses that we wouldn't have otherwise had, and I've had to cut back on how much I work. Emotionally, it's hard. We carry a lot of fear for Samuel. And just the day-to-day care is hard. Physically, it's very tiring.
We spent hours each week preparing medicine, filling out paperwork, and taking him to doctors and therapists. Samuel's illnesses have forced him to miss months of school. We do whatever we can to create normalcy in our lives. But when a health crisis hits, we put everything aside and just try to get through it.
There were periods when Samuel's health was so shaky and so bad that we couldn't go anywhere as a family. And you lose touch with people. We missed a lot of family gatherings. We missed a lot of holiday celebrations. We just found ourselves feeling isolated. When Samuel's gone through periods of real health crisis, I do not feel emotionally balanced. I feel really out of balance. People sometimes wonder, how do you do it? Well, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't even remember some of those times. We tried to focus on the good times and not lose sight of Isaiah, even though there were times when I practically tossed him out of the car to a friend on the way to the hospital. I think that Isaiah does an awful lot of worrying about Samuel, and I wish he didn't have that load to carry.
He once got his tonsils out in the hospital, and he had to stay in there longer for 2 weeks more because he had pneumonia. And, well, I didn't like that. I was worried. I was scared. I wanted him to be okay.
We work hard to give Isaiah the attention he deserves, but I do worry that sometimes we come up short.
I know he needs a lot of attention, and I try to face that. Like when he's sick, he gets a lot of attention, really a lot of attention. And I just it just feels like you guys don't care about me. Like, hey, I'm over here also. I'm right here.
Can all children be included? Are there times when a separate school really is the best place for a student? I got to know Emily Huff as I looked for answers to those questions.
I am in a doctor's office and they're talking like they know every single thing about schizophrenia that is to be known. They don't. I'm like, you don't understand anything. When you have 7 people living in your head, then we can talk. I had this internal world of fighting and friendship and all the excitement, all the things I didn't have in this world. And I continued to live in that world more and more and be in the real world with my family less and less. The 7 characters that I currently have, their names are Kat, Laura, Sheila, Darian, Bo, Zephyr, and Druid. I drew pictures of the voices, but they requested that I leave their faces out still, so there's still some mystery to the outside world about them.
From very early on, Emily was somewhat of a mystery. We started avoiding family activities sometimes because we just knew what the outcome was going to be, like at Thanksgiving, pulling the tablecloth out from under the dessert table. Well, that doesn't tend to make you a real popular person.
Anne wanted Emily to be with her peers, and Emily attended a public middle school. She was integrated with the general student population, but there were problems.
The medications I take, the side effects are weight gain, as you can see. Unfortunately, I've gained about 110 pounds.
Her needs were so intense that no one teacher in a classroom could begin to give her the support she needed.
If I had the right support, if I had had a right IEP, if I had a study hall, then maybe it would have worked.
She was isolating herself a great deal from others. She was hearing voices speaking to her through the ventilation system. And it was over that summer that she did try to take her life through a combination of pills. She was just very, very prepared to die.
The more they picked on me, the more walls I put up, the more I alienated myself, the more I said to myself, I don't want to be part of their world. It was a lot of pain, a lot of crying, a lot of uncertainty about who I was.
And so it was very clear. A doctor had warned a year ago that placement in a public school was putting her at great risk.
Emily transferred from public school to a private, out-of-town program that specialized in educating children with mental illnesses.
And it was only in an atmosphere that was both therapeutic and academic that Emily could begin to really learn. And that goes against the model of full inclusion. And I struggled with that because of missing the peer interaction.
Families are put in positions to have to make really horrible choices. And isn't it unfortunate that we haven't figured out as a society to bring those tools, those accommodations, adaptations into a public school environment where everybody can learn?
A teacher long ago said to me that in spite of what is difficult to manage for Emily, to always remember that keeping her spirit intact is the most important thing you're going to ever do.
My mom, during the time I was sick and during my whole life, has been a guardian person watching over me, helping me in every way she can. And she's never given up on me.
Emily graduated from high school, and she and her mother travel the country speaking about mental illness. She's studying sign language and plans to become a teacher. She's moved into her own apartment. But life for Emily is still fragile. Anne says it is not a question of if Emily will have a relapse, but when.
I just want people to see the friendly, clever, smart, whatever I am person, and not judge. People are different. Life isn't perfect. I just wish that one day I didn't have to hide who I am.
Oh, so once you squirt that in, it just goes all...
It goes all the way in, and the best thing about it, Mom, can I have that? The best thing about it, Mitchell, is that no one has to take medicine. It tastes awful.
Yeah.
So he never has to do that.
Yep.
So if he has to take cough medicine,
Just goes right through your stomach.
Exactly. It's the greatest. Now that I'm so close to a person with a disability, I can't believe that I was so blind to what people with disabilities in our community, in our country, in the world deal with every day. There was this huge civil rights issue, this huge amount of prejudice going on, and I never noticed it before. And now I can't believe that not everybody sees it. I see a world that is not very welcoming of people with disabilities. And it makes me really angry because Samuel is my child. How can the world not be welcoming of him?
I see the work of inclusion as probably the last frontier of desegregation. We have for too long accepted the premise of separate but equal as being okay. If you read the brief from Brown versus Board of Ed, the Board of Education argued that if we let blacks be integrated, that the next thing you know is that we'll be letting people with disabilities be integrated.
This is the last great civil rights struggle this country will see, if it is done correctly.
Your job is to look upon your constituencies and understand that we live here too. We play here too. We want to work here too. We want to earn here too. We want to have families here too.
It's because when the baby boomers come in, they ain't gonna call themselves disabled, they're gonna call themselves old. But their ass is still gonna need a ramp. You know, you still gonna need some glasses, you still gonna need a hearing aid, you still gonna need a scooter, you still gonna need a wheelchair, you still gonna need an accessible bus, accessible house.
We want to be a part of the community too. And not that we want to be, we already are.
If we use our voice in a collective manner, that we will not only change the course for our people, but for the rest of this country.
This has been the hardest journey of my life, but I am so grateful. Our experiences with Samuel have taught me the strength I never knew I had, the capacity to love and endure that I didn't know I had, the ability to see the positive in situations that seem so sad, the strength of our families and friends, and their support of us and their love for us.
Samuel has changed the way I look at everyone around me. He has taught me not to prejudge anyone by how they talk, or whether they can talk, or how they move or see or hear. He has taught me patience. He has taught me not to make assumptions. Those are huge and profound changes in my life.
No flying ponds, and you have one right there. Because Samuel has to work so hard to say the things he wants to say, I have learned to appreciate and cherish everything he says. And I think this carries over to Isaiah as well. I really appreciate and notice the things that he says that show me how hard he's working to grow up.
Have you learned anything from him?
Yeah, I guess.
What?
I learned it's possible to sit down, play t-ball and still hit really far at the same time.